All right, welcome to another studio episode. I think today is probably going to be a weird video, but welcome to my channel, I guess. It started out as, I think this is going to be a video response to a question. If you're not new to the channel, you know that this is not the first time I've done this. And if you are new to the channel, welcome. My name's Brent. I'm a photographer. I do lots of photography things. In this case, wildlife photography. And I just wanted to talk about one of the comments that I got recently. And it's not the first time I've got this comment, and it certainly won't be the last time. But it got my hamsters back on the wheel and got me thinking. And I came to the conclusion that I just feel like this is a bad way to think, to perceive, to be, I guess. So the comment was on my last video. It was a wildlife video. I went chasing some ducks, but that's not important. The comment was basically, so I have that lens right there, the 500 f4 Mark II, and the comment was basically, why do you need such a pricey lens? And I responded to the comment, and I basically said, well, who said I needed it? No one ever said that. I didn't say it. No one else said it. There's no need involved in that lens. I definitely made a very long video about why and how I got that. So if you are new or you haven't seen that video and you want to check it out, it's there. Also irrelevant. It's just that question really got me thinking. And it's like, I don't need to defend myself. I couldn't care less. Like, what people think of me, what anyone else thinks of me is just none of my business. I just don't care. And you definitely kind of have to be that way, especially on social media these days. Thick skin. But it got me thinking, and it's like, it boils down to, I feel like when someone posts a comment like that, and I got comments like that, I get them on a lot of things. I got them on the 1 to 500 when that first came out. I bought that, and people were freaking out. That's $3,000, and you don't need that. And why wouldn't you just get one of these other, many other things that are just a blah blah blah, and why would you buy an R5 when that first came out? That's $4,000, and I could do just fine with this blah blah. You see where I'm going? It's the cycle. There's always somebody that's going to be complaining about something, but like, why are they complaining? Like, what's the mentality? What's the thought process? Is there any logic to that type of thinking? And it comes down to, like, the type of thinking really is, if I can't afford that, then it sucks, or then you don't need it, or nobody needs it, or I don't need it, or you get the idea here, right? And I just think that's a really weird way to think. And I know that that's like a self-preservation thing, and I know that that's a psychological tactic within us. We all do it, and it's a defense mechanism to make us feel better about maybe we can't afford that, or maybe we can't justify it. And maybe we could afford it, but we can't justify it. Whatever the reasons, our brains work to, like, self-preservation and defense mechanisms, all that kind of stuff. Very psychologically powerful. And I think we really need to override that to be the best that we can be, to be our best selves, and in the terms of this channel, to be the best photographers we can be. And then that got me thinking about, like, well, what do you need for wildlife? Obviously, the guy that left that comment thinks that we don't need this. He doesn't need it. I don't need it. You don't need it. I don't know. Who doesn't need it? But maybe that's just because he can't afford it, or because he doesn't want to afford it. I'm not here to insult anybody. Everybody's different. I mean, heck, I couldn't barely afford that thing. I mean, again, I made a whole video about that. It was stressful, but I don't regret it. I still get asked that comment all the time, is, do I regret getting this, and more importantly, do I regret selling my 1 to 500? And the answer, just over time, just keeps becoming even more overwhelmingly no. I do not regret everything that I had to do to get that, and no, I do not regret selling my 1 to 500. But that's me. That's where I'm at with my personal photography, with my photography business. For me, that's a business investment. I'm getting sidetracked. That none of that's important. Like I said, I don't need to justify to anybody why I'm doing photography the way I'm doing, or running the business the way I'm running, whatever. That's irrelevant. The point is, I wanted it, and I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. And I've talked about this a lot, gear doesn't matter, and you know, having that mentality of like, oh, you could do it with, you know, I mean, can you do wildlife with this? This is the RF 1 to 400. This is the cheapest wildlife lens that arguably you could pick up one of them. You know what I mean? It's like 600 bucks. I got that lens secondhand on MPB, not sponsored by the way. They don't know who I am. It doesn't matter. I got that lens for like 450 bucks. So, you know, the point is, yeah, you can get relatively cheap things. And then the other point is, you know, to that commenter, is that price is relevant, right? What you think is pricey may not be pricey to someone else, and vice versa. There are people that are poorer than you, and there are people that are richer than you. And price is a relative term, just like pretty much anything these days. I think we would all do really well to remember that kind of thinking before the keyboard comes out and the caps lock gets pressed, and you know, it's just always good. I think it's just always good to breathe before you comment. But anyways, back to the what do you need? Like, do I need that lens? I don't know. I mean, I could argue that I do. I could also argue that I don't. It doesn't really matter. I know that my wildlife photography, I think, has benefited from having it based on the way that I like to shoot and the things that I shoot and the direction that I'm taking my wildlife photography. All of those things come to the conclusion for me anecdotally that, yeah, I don't want to go back to anything else, you know, unless it's up, unless it's like a 600 f4 or the RF 600 or something. Both of those I would consider moving forward, and both of those are more expensive than that, and neither of which I can personally afford right now. So I will be very happy with that 500 for a while. You know, and happiness is a mindset too. That's kind of like what I was talking about in my last video. That was kind of like the whole gestalt, the big picture of the last video, and a lot of my videos is that like things go wrong or whatever. You don't always get what you want. Sometimes you get what you need. Thanks, Mick Jagger. Uh, but the point is like happiness is a state of mind that you can choose to be in. And I choose to be in happiness as much as possible, even when like really crappy things happen all around me. Maybe that's like too spiritual or hippie for for people, but you know, it's a philosophy. It's just a way of life. It just makes me happy to be happy. So here's what I think you need for wildlife photography. If you want to get into wildlife photography, if you want to take your wildlife photography to the next level, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need. And it's a double-edged sword. Um, Gear doesn't matter until it does. That's like my favorite phrase is like, yeah, if you give me a 100 to 400 and a cheap R10 or something like that, or if you give me an original 7D with a 400 f5.6, something super cheap, or a 70 to 300, give me something. I'll go get you the best wildlife images that I can, and I'll get them to the best of my ability and to the best of my equipment's ability. And that comes down to my skill, my experiences, all of that. But they're not going to be probably technically as good as the images as I could get with an R5 and that 500 behind me, you know? But then the converse side of that is I could give a beginner or someone who hasn't done very much wildlife or none at all, or is just a hobbyist or whatever, I give them an R5 and a 500 f4 and say, go get me some Nat Geo level photography, you know, or whatever. Just go get me some like amazing wildlife photography. They going to be able to do it? Probably not. And this is the reason why. The biggest thing is not only knowing the technical stuff, but that's important, you know, learning photography, learning the principles of photography and art, light, composition, technical settings, what is it, physics, shutter speed, atmospheric distortion, all of that is super important. But then like even more important, especially in wildlife photography, is learning wildlife, you know, like and even more important than learning wildlife, and like you can learn until you're blue in the face and you know you're a master of knowledge or whatever. But the most important thing in wildlife is getting out and staying out. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to rely on luck to get good images, you know. The most important aspect of wildlife photography, the most important thing that's going to make you a better wildlife photographer is to get out there and stay out as long as you can, as much as you can. And that's where most people have the problem. Most people have like very busy lives. Most people are not full-time wildlife photographers and they can't just go out. That's the biggest dilemma. And that's the difference that separates, that's one of the biggest differences, I will say, that separates a professional wildlife photographer or even someone who takes it really seriously and is willing to spend their free time as a hobby, as much of that as possible. The more time you're willing to spend out of your life sitting in crappy conditions and driving hours and just, or even just sitting in your yard for hours on end, waiting for the birds to get in the right light or the right pose or the right bird or hit the right branch or whatever. The more time you dedicate to being out there in wildlife, the better your chances of getting better images. That comes first. Second comes your knowledge of the equipment, and third, lastly, comes the actual equipment. Another person commented recently, I don't know if I responded, I really wanted to. Sometimes sarcasm gets the better of me and it's not easily conveyed over words. And I'm an extremely sarcastic person. But they commented on my last video and they said, uh, just get a 7D Mark II. And then, because I think I was complaining about not having my teleconverter. And they're like, then you won't need a teleconverter and the adapter. And it's like, what I wanted to say was like, I just wanted to put a bunch of laughy faces and be like, no, I'm good. I had a 7D Mark II for years, and I'm very happy. As much as I complained in the last video, I'm very, very happy with my R5, and I will never go back to a DSLR. That's my personal views where I'm at with my photography. That's not judging anyone else. I don't think that sarcasm would have gone through, and I'm certainly not out to be insulting of anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel bad for whatever they have or don't have. But back to the topic, the two best things you can do for wildlife photography is get out there as much as possible, and also concurrently with that is learn every single thing about the gear that you have now and put those two things together. You need to understand your gear, how it works, the limitations, and just photography in general, as well as the wildlife. The better you understand the wildlife, the better your chances of properly capturing the moment when it's presented to you. And the same thing with the better you understand your own gear and its limitations, the better chances you'll have of getting the best shot you possibly can with that gear. And then comes things like editing. I've done videos about like how powerful editing is, and maybe you want to do it, maybe you don't. Maybe you're scared of editing, maybe you don't like it, maybe you're a purist, maybe you love editing, whatever. All I'm saying is that editing is very powerful. It's part of the tool set that's going to help you. You can get the best image you can in camera, and if you're fine with that, cool. But just know that that's not going to go very far these days. And if you want to take that image to the next level, especially according to some, general societal standards for what we as a society determine as a good image, then you're definitely going to want to up your editing, and I've talked about that and I've showed the power of editing and how I do it with wildlife and stuff like that. Point is, all of these are tools and they all go together, but none of that is really going to matter if you don't spend enough time out there. If you just casually go do wildlife and you're just walking around in the woods or whatever and just hoping you see what you see when you happen to be out, then you're going to have to live with those statistics and knowing that if you do get anything, you're probably going to be pretty lucky. And you can go places that might mitigate that a little bit, places like national parks, Yellowstone and Rocky Mountain National Park and Tetons and all that stuff, and know what you're looking for. But then that's the next step, is you still got to know what you're looking for, and you still got to you can go to, I've been to Yellowstone plenty of times where I've never seen a bear, but I wasn't looking, and maybe sometimes I didn't know what I was looking for. And over the years, like now I know what to look for. I know the signs. I know a lot more about bears and where they live and what they're doing at any certain type of time of season or day or year or month or whatever. Same thing with the elk and the birds and everything else that I like to photograph. So the last thing on this list is equipment. Do I need that 500? No, I've done lots of good things without it because of the other two, especially the other two, time on the job and complete understanding of my gear and editing, have helped me push those boundaries and get really great images and make really great images. I think that's super important to understand is I'm not getting these images, I'm not taking these pictures. That's just the first step. I'm making an image here. And my time on the job, my technical knowledge of the gear, my knowledge of the animals, and my knowledge of editing are all going to make up for that. And then when I do have the best gear that I can get, they're going to push that even further, and that bar is going to be even higher. Now, one last real quick thing about the gear doesn't matter until it does. So being a professional, a lot of people will say that gear doesn't matter, and technically it doesn't. The other two things matter more than gear. However, there are always things where gear will help you get what you need for a certain level. For being a professional photographer, I'm not really a professional wildlife photographer. I'm a professional photographer overall. And I love wildlife, and it's part of my YouTube, and I do it semi-professionally. But I do a lot of other types of photography professionally: travel, commercial, sports, portraits, all kinds of stuff like that. And being a professional photographer, there are things that the gear gets me that I need to do my job. Things like the best autofocus and high ISO performance and, fast shutter speed or fast apertures for, low light stuff or whatever. There are times weather sealed gear is really important to me personally, or professionally, I should say, because I'm out in the weather a lot in yucky conditions. And if I'm being paid out there, I got to know that my gear can stand up. So there are times, that's why I say gear doesn't matter until it does. But in terms of just a regular person going out as a hobby to have fun and be creative, no, gear doesn't matter. I mean, if you guys aren't new to my channel, then you'll know how much I love doing phone stuff, and other professional photographers give me crap about doing phone stuff all the time. Like, how can you be professional and still tell someone it's okay to use their phone? Because it is, man. This is like a gateway drug, like this could get people into more and more photography and to be more creative and to see world in different places. So I absolutely love telling people, use your phone, just not for wildlife photography. For that, you're probably going I know it says it has 100 times zoom and 200 megapixels on these phones, but come on. Don't go there. I digress. The point is, gear doesn't matter until it does, but that is still tertiary in the scheme of things for what you need to be a better wildlife photographer. You need more time on the job and as much knowledge as you can possibly get about your gear and the animals that you're looking to photograph. So I hope that helps. I don't want people thinking in boxes and having tunnel vision and being stuck with negative thoughts. And I don't want you to think negative thoughts because you can't afford something. I don't want you to beat yourself up for it. And I don't want you to be thinking so negatively and be like bummed out when you come home with bad images yourself. I've had plenty of those. Even with this thing, I've made plenty of bad images. It's not the gear that gets you bad images. It's not knowing how to use it and not understanding the situations. I'll tell you right now, just a bonus tip that I've said on many, many other videos. Physics is not your friend. I am a physicist. I am a scientist also. The biggest killer of people's images and the biggest reason for wildlife photographer depression is definitely the atmosphere. The atmosphere is like the worst thing on earth, even though it's the only thing on earth keeping us alive. Atmospheric distortion, diffraction, heat haze, all of those things are the biggest thing that will ruin your images the fastest. And it doesn't matter if you're using one of these or one of those. It doesn't matter if you're using something that's $600 or $20,000. If the atmosphere If the atmosphere is crap and you're shooting through it, your images are going to be crap. That's just a little side tip. So, a lot of people beat themselves up after they buy new gear. This new camera was supposed to be great. This new lens was supposed to be amazing. I made a video about that too. You should check it out because I have some editing stuff in that video that might help you. But that's the mentality. And it's like, it's not them. It's not their gear. It's physics. It's the atmosphere. Light is not our friend. Chemistry, it's not our friend. There's a lot of weird things going on. So that's the last point. Don't beat yourself up and arm yourself. The more you can know about this kind of stuff, the more informed you are about what's going on around you and what your gear can and can't do, what you can and can't do in post-processing, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to help you to be not only a better photographer, but a happier photographer. All right, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up here. If you made it this far, I really appreciate it. That was a lot of rambling. I know. That's how I roll, though. I got stuff up here and I wanted to share it with you. Most of my stuff's out in the field, so if you are new to the channel and this is the first video you've seen, I do go check out my wildlife playlist. I got a lot of cool videos in there. If you're picking up what I'm putting down and you like what I'm doing and you want to support me some more, check out the channel memberships. Got a lot of extra videos there, stuff like this, also editing stuff, extra full tutorials, and I'm going to be doing a lot more full tutorials with the channel memberships, behind the scenes, all that kind of stuff. Presets, workshops, all of that stuff's down below. Scotland, I've got one spot left, I think. So if you want that spot for June 2024, Scotland, wildlife, landscape stuff, it's going to be amazing. All right, that's it. I'm done here. I'm going to edit this video, and then I think I'm going to go try to find a vermilion flycatcher because I just saw one on eBird showed up in my neighborhood, and looking forward to migration season this year. So maybe I'll even make a video on it. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.